This is the second of our webinars, and it is with pleasure I introduce Dayo, and I hope you enjoy this session. Thank you.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Arinze, for that introduction. My name is Temidayo Adelua. Today I'll be taking us through the second webinar presentation, which is applying to graduate school strategies, tips, and things you should know. More of the practical things you should know. I'll be taking us through that, and we should learn a lot. We should learn some things that we did not know before now. So, what should anyone who wants to go to graduate school consider? So there are many things. There are many things you should think of. There are many things you should be aware of. And one of the important things is to think about your career goals. You want to think about your ambition. You want to think about where you want to be, in the next 5 years, in the next 10 years, in the next 15 years. In our first webinar, we talked about the various career career opportunities available to a bioscience student. We talked about many of the opportunities available and the fields you can go into. So if you are not familiar with any of those career opportunities, or you don't have a good idea of all the career opportunities that might be available for you, the video is on YouTube. So you can just search for Inspire Biotech Africa on YouTube and you can get the video. Arize did a really good job on that video. So you want to think about your career goals. You want to think about where you want to go to, where you want to get to. And that is very important. So, and another important thing is that the currency in biotech has to do with publication. So your publication speaks a lot about the work you have done and what you do. So you also want to go to a place where you can do good research and get good publications so that your career, keeps going up here. And we also advise that you do not think about a career in the biosciences as a way to escape the hardship of wherever you are, or as an immigration. That can be that can be secondary, but it shouldn't be the primary focus of why you are going into a bioscience career. Yeah. So, as an African student, you want to think about a strategy. You want to think about the strategies, and this is because graduate school is hard. Okay, and when we talk about graduate school, we are essentially talking about masters and PhD program, and the difficulty of getting into a graduate program has to do with a lot of hindrances, or a lot of things, including the prestige of the school, how prestigious is the school, how prestigious is the program, and also the funding available. So funding can make things a bit more difficult to get into any school. And the story is also told by acceptance rate, which is a statistic of the number of students who are offered admission, but the number of students who applied for that position. So for many schools, the acceptance rates are low, and it kind of sends this signal that this program is sort of difficult to get. So we got this data from Northwestern University. Northwestern University is a prestigious school in the US, and we got this data on the acceptance rates of students who apply to the life sciences PhD programs. So we have the domestic students, those students who are citizens and permanent residents, and we have international students on the right. And you can see that it is a bit easier for domestic students to get admitted than international students. About 217 domestic students applied and 47 got admitted in 2019, versus 218 international students who applied for the life sciences PhD program, but 16 got admitted. So you can see that it's a bit difficult. And so for the average international student, you have to put in a bit more work. You have to do something extra. Another reason why strategy for you as an African student is important is because your counterpart, who is an American or an Asian or an European or an Australian, has had enough research experience. So from undergraduates, they have gone on to do internships, they've gone on to do summer research opportunities, they've gone on volunteering, they've gone to this lab, they've gone to that company, and then these things have added, have accumulated, into lots of research experiences which the average African student does not have. So on a normal day, the average African student, as far as I know, does not have many of these opportunities, right? But the counterparts, from elsewhere in the world have these opportunities, which makes it a bit more difficult for any African student. So again, but it is important, and one of the reasons why this is so, why they tend to have this lots of experiences by the time they are done or ready to apply to graduate programs, is because is because there are is because research is part of the scientific culture in these places. So there are funding opportunities available, and research is an economic strength. But this is not the same for an African student. So again, you have to think of strategies. You have to think, no matter how smart you are. So if at this point you are getting discouraged to apply to graduate programs, then I will say that you should not apply, because getting discouraged at this point is not good. So, but if you still think that you should apply, then yes, please apply, because there's a good chance that you will get in when you think about the strategies you should think about. So, low acceptance rates only mean that such schools Low acceptance rates only mean that such schools will take much less students than applied, right? So you also have to be realistic, right? You also have to think, realistically. Because a school is in the top 50 schools does not mean that they cannot take you. No, it only means that they are trying to what it means when you apply is that they are looking for the most promising students. They don't necessarily have to be the most brilliant students. But you have to show promise. What many academic or what many admission committees are always looking for when you submit your personal statements and all those um, things that go along with your application, what they are always looking for is promise. Do you have the potential to represent our school really well? And if you can show that promise, then you stand a really good chance. Okay, you stand a really good chance. So it's also good to know that not all schools are not easy to get into, and admission committees need to select. So they need to weed people out. So what we'll be thinking about now is how to make sure that you are not weeded out. That is one of the strategies you want to think about. You want to make sure that you are not weeded out. So, and it's also important to know that selection is based on many criteria, and you don't have to meet all of them. But your application needs to be solid. And by being solid, we mean that your application needs to be complete. You meet the deadlines, you submit your recommendations when they need to be submitted, you pay the application fees if you have to pay application fees, you make sure that there are no gaps or holes in your application. So let's start thinking a bit more practical, which is the essence of this webinar, how to think practically about going about this. So what should determine the schools you apply to? Well, don't think about the overall ranking of the school, because when you start applying to the master's or PhD program, you are narrowing down your career options in a way. You are focusing more on what you want to do. So you don't think about the overall school ranking, because not all programs within any highly ranked school are scored equally, right? So a school A, which is rated very high, will have some programs or some departments that do not rank as high as a school B, which offers the same program, but the program is much more exceptional. It offers more promise. So you want to look at the program you want to apply to, not at the school. Very important. Don't think about, Harvard, MIT. really good schools, but you want to think about the programs you want to apply to. And this is why there are places called institutes of research that also offer PhD programs. One of these institutes of research is EMBI-EBI, and sorry, EMBL-EBI, and EMBL-EBI is an institute of research in Europe, and it is really good, really prestigious. It is affiliated with the University of Cambridge. So you can get your PhD from Cambridge, you can get your PhD from EMBL EBI, which is an institute of research. And if you Google top 10 ranking schools, you won't find EMBL EBI among them. It is not a university, right? So you want to look for programs, you want to focus more on the program than on the school. Very important. Look at the department, compare departments with departments, programs with programs. And it's also important to know that the person you work with matters more, because the person you work with becomes your advisor. If it's a master's program or if it's a PhD program, in many cases, the person you work with will determine your career, because the person becomes your advisor, becomes your mentor, and you learn from them. So talking about master's programs, there are usually two. Master's program could be thesis based or non-thesis based. The thesis-based programs are usually funded they take between 1 to 3 years, and they help you get research experience on the way to doing a PhD. This is sort of like what I am doing right now. I'm doing a master's, but it's a thesis-based master's, right? So I'm getting the research experiences that I initially lack. A non-thesis-based master's can get you to the same place you want to get to, easy, right? But the drawback is many times they are usually not funded. They go for a year, and they are much more curricular based. So they are much more focused. They are less focused on research than thesis based masters. So you also want to think about that. But generally, both of them will take you to where you want to get to, right? In many cases. Another thing that should determine the school you apply to is something we mentioned at the beginning of this presentation. Your ambition. It's important to know that a PhD is not necessary. A PhD is not compulsory. It all depends on what you want to do in life. Again, I will refer us to the first webinar we had, where my colleague Arinze did a really good job on the career opportunities available. You need to watch that, because there are way more career opportunities than you think are available. So you want to choose an ambition, you want to choose something, and that should determine where you apply to. About the countries, you want to think about the US, the UK, Tokyo, Canada, and many of these places. It's important to know that you'll be spending a year to 7 years of your life in that place. And so you want to think about the barriers that might, come to you in terms of language, in terms of cultural barriers. Make sure you go to a place. If you have always loved Japan, right? Japan has one of the best schools in the world. So if you have, this is just an example, if you have always loved the culture, find a way to apply to Japanese schools. There are top ranked Japanese schools, really good ones, and really good programs. Find a way to apply there if you love the culture, if you really love the culture, because outside academia, um, you'll be spending some time, in fact, a lot of your time outside class, right? So you want to go out, you want to have fun, and these things have a way to, help your mental health or otherwise, depending on where you go. So you want to go there. You also want to go to a place where research is an economic strength. And this is not a big problem, because many places outside Africa present research as an economic strength. So that's not a challenge. But think about the country you are going to also. So how do you become competitive, right? One of the ways to become competitive is to have done really well in school. And by doing really well in school, I don't mean you should have had a first class. No, I mean you should have done, appreciably well. But if you have not done really well in school, it does not matter, because you still have opportunities to show that you can be competitive. Your GPA does not exactly matter. And why I'm saying this is that one of the ways you can show competition, or to be at least as competitive as possible, is for you to make sure that you are active. Always do something. Make sure you are doing something at every point in time. Make sure you are sorry. Okay, make sure you are going to you make sure you have a job. Make sure you have things that you are doing that tend to not leave gaps in your CV. You want to do that. You want to take up this job. You want to take up this internship because when you start applying, these things will form part of your application. They will form part of your experiences. First off, whatever you do does not have to be related to science. So whether you're working in a bank right now and you still want to go to do science, it is possible. It will form part of your experiences. Okay, it's going to form part of your experiences. So just make sure you are active as much as possible. Secondly, make sure you are doing something related to science. It could be scientific writing if you want, so that you have something that tethers you to science. Let it be by the side if it is not something that brings in the money as at now, but make sure you are doing something related to science, something that links you. And we'll talk a bit more about that as I go on. Again, how do you become competitive? Standardized tests. Standardized tests provide a good opportunity for anyone, really anyone who maybe has not done really well in school, to show that they can be competitive. I know many of us might be familiar with the GRE or the TOEFL. These are just two. Depending on the country that you are applying to, you might need to show proof that you can speak the language or understand the language. But these are the common ones. And they are an opportunity for you to show that you are competitive if the program requires you to, submit any of these. So you want to take them really well. You want to try as much as possible. At least meet the cutoff as much as you can. If you want to take it again, take it again. If you want to take it 3 times, take it 3 times. But good enough, many programs are actively dropping the GRE requirement. So we will be providing the names of some of those programs. We give a link to find some of those programs that are actively dropping the GRE requirement to be on our LinkedIn page, and you can always get it from there. So, but you will always in most cases, you will need to show proof of English and something like that. Again, how do you become competitive? By feeding your knowledge. It is important to know that you are going into science. And we said earlier that the currency in science is, your research, your publications, the things you do. One of the things that we think you should start doing now, if you want to apply to any program in the next 2 years, 3 years, or even next year, is to start reading scientific publications. They are available on PubMed. Go to PubMed, pick a scientific article that is in sync with what you want to do, something you like, something you are interested in, and read once in a week, twice in a week. Make sure you read, because I have seen interview processes where the applicants was sent a scientific publication and was asked to come present on that publication. Okay, so if you have not been doing this for a while, you will not be used to it, and it's going to stagger you. You won't be comfortable doing it. So you want to make it your habit now, because if you eventually get into science, this is something you will be doing for a long time. So you want to do it now. You want to start now. Make it your habit. Be able, have an understanding of what scientific publications are. And in subsequent webinars, we'll be going about, things like how to read a scientific publication, which we know many Nigerian students, as far as I know, and maybe many African students, do not really know how to do. So we want to make that available to everyone, right? An important way, another edge to being competitive. So we've mentioned ways by which you can be competitive and things you should start doing. This involves a lot of practical, a lot of things that you should do. One thing that you will absolutely need to do is to reach out to professors. Not in all cases, but to give you that edge, you want to talk directly to people you think you can work with. So when you go to look at programs and you find a particular program that you like, and then you look for somebody who does something, that you love or that you want to do, reach out, send an email. Be ready to send out emails to as many potential advisors as possible. There are some programs in some countries that require you to do that before you can apply through the normal route. But irrespective, don't limit it to those schools. Make sure you are ready to send out emails to as many professors or potential advisors out there. Okay, we'll be showing you an example soon. You want to look at what the person does in their lab. Many researchers do not have websites, but many are actively coming up with their own web pages to document what they do. It's important to also know that if the research does not interest you, please do not apply. Whatever, there is always a place for you, no matter what you want to do. There is always a place for you out there, no matter what you want to do. It is always out there. So if you don't like the work, even if you see that, oh, it's easy for me to get into this program, if you don't like the work, do not do it. Just do not send that email. Do not quote, right? Do not sugarcoat, as we put it. So, yeah, so this is an example of something you can, let me drag this here so you can, so this is an example of something you can think about sending, right? Dear Dr. So, my name is, so, I'm a student of so. I have or will be graduating from this or that. I came across your publication due to my interest in whatever it is, and it was an interesting read. If it was, it precisely answers the question of this and this and this. However, I have a few questions. If you have those questions, send the questions, show interest, really important. And then you also go ahead if you want to apply to that school and you say, I'll be applying to your school this coming application season. I am interested in working in your laboratory and wrote my master's or PhD degree. Will you be taking any students, right? And to make things easier, make sure you attach your resume, your unofficial test scores if you have written them, and your transcript. And then you want to send that out. Just send it out to as many people as possible. See, 90% of the time you will get a response, be it favorable or not favorable. You can even ask them that, I want to apply to your laboratory. What are the things you think I should learn or know how to do or think about before applying? What are the things that are useful in your laboratory that I should get accustomed, to, right? So you want to think, you want to send out emails like that. You want to reach out. Again, strategy, right? So you want to think about the practical things you can do. So, like I said, there's a good chance you will receive a response. Could be favorable, could not be. Does not matter. But the important thing is that you've taken the step, right? So, again, do not apply if you do not like the work. Please, highly important. Requirements are school specific. It's important to know that. So, you might as well start doing research now by learning how to do good research now. Some schools will require you to contact the professor before applying to the general application route. You want to have that information, right? So, and some schools will require you to have a PhD. Some schools will require you to have a master's before applying to a PhD. Some schools don't need that. In fact, many programs do not need that. But you might want to think about that. I put this here. You might also want to make use of application fee waivers. They are available. And recommendation letters, really important. So your recommendation letters we send will make or mar, is one of those things that will make or mar your application. Again, start informing people that you work with during your undergraduate that you want to apply to graduate school. Let them know. There's nothing to hide. Let them know. They will be proud if you get into those programs. So I'm sure they are willing to help you. This is also one of the reasons why you should have formed or you should form good relationships with your lecturers while you are still in undergraduate school, right? So don't wait till the deadline before you ask for help on your recommendation letters. Stay with your recommenders. Very important. Please stay with your recommenders. Help them all the way. Another reason why we mentioned earlier that you should always be active is that for some programs, they will ask you to submit 2 recommendations from people who talk to you in an academic capacity, and 1 recommendation, if you want, from somebody who you worked with. So if you have been working, if you have had this work experience, they can fill in recommendations for you. So you also want to think about being active all the time. Stay with your recommenders, help them all the way. Whatever you do, you will need to communicate with your recommenders. And it's important you tell them that they say the best things about you, not the bad things about you. They should tell the admission committee why they think you should be admitted, why you are one of the promising candidates. It can sound like borderline flattery, but it should sound like that. It should show that they really liked it when you were with them and they want you to move forward. So you want to be with your recommenders. Your personal statements represent one of the things that, or the only thing that give you the opportunity to present yourself. So this is where you tell the school why they should admit you. This is where you communicate with the admission committee. Don't be generic. I beg you, as much as possible. Don't start with when I was 3 years old, my grandma or my granddad came down with Parkinson's, and that was where I started getting my passion. You don't want to do that. Please don't be generic. Don't be generic as much as possible. Except it is true, but if it is not, look for something else that motivates you. I am sure that from your experiences, there will be so many things that motivate you. So you want to talk about why you volunteer, why there is a gap in your CV, why you took up that internship position, why you are so interested in science. There are many angles, way too many angles. Okay, in subsequent lectures, we will be talking about things like writing personal statements in subsequent webinars. So be ready to talk about your research experiences. There is no way most Nigerian students, as far as I know, and most African students should have done a final year project. It is enough. Your final year project is more than enough. I tell you, it is way more than enough. Your work does not have to be the bomb. It doesn't have to be the best. It doesn't have to be the most impactful. It is enough. But you have to sit down and think about all those times when you woke up in the middle of the night to read the research article to further your work, to find another angle. You have to think about those times when you had to run certain analysis and you had to learn how to do that analysis. So you want to think about the things that you did that made your project successful, or even if it is a failure, even if it was a failure, you can still write about it. So make sure you go back and understand what you did if you are going to be writing about it. If your work is publishable, please make sure your supervisor publish it. Your supervisor publishes it because that can go a long way in bolstering your application. So each program has their own way of writing personal statements. Please follow the guideline. Whatever you do, read and reread and reread and reread and reread and reread and reread your personal statement as much as you can. Have other people read your personal statement. They get better every single time. Run it through Grammarly, through Hemingway app, through many of these apps out there that can help you, right? So make sure you do that. Your transcript. So this is not difficult, but the practical thing here is for you to get your unofficial transcript. You want to get your unofficial transcript because I know that in Nigeria you are not supposed to have access to your official transcript, but you can be giving your student or unofficial transcript. Get it, okay? Please get it and scan it. And when you scan it, save it. Keep it. Just make sure it is ready to go. Best quality, make sure it's ready to go at any point in time. Any point, it's ready to go. Some transcript will need to be evaluated in countries like Canada and the US, but you want to think about the cost. But if that is needed, then you also want to start planning for that, which is one of the things I'll mention later on. Planning. Okay, so the activities we want you to do or to start doing now is that you will also need to document everything because when you start applying to graduate programs, you need to open accounts, right? So you don't want to recover your passwords every time. No, don't do that. When I was applying, I had this book. I still have the book here where I wrote down the names of the school, the passwords, the links. I used a book, right? But if you don't want to use a book, you can use Google Sheets. Easy. It works really good. You can use Excel. I prefer Google Sheets because it saves everything online. You can use Excel and you can see that small boy writing. Be like that young boy there, right? Make sure you write things down or you just document things. Please and please. Deadlines, scholarships, whatever, document things. We want you to apply something called a sieving method where you've planned way ahead to apply to a program. And then what you now start to do is you just go online and you start looking for schools that interest you in countries that interest you. Get as much as 30 schools, 40 schools, 20 schools, as many as possible. You want to get all these schools and then you want to start narrowing them down. You want to start breaking them down. You want to start reaching out. You want to start sending emails and start reaching out to program coordinators and advisors. And you want to start identifying schools that you have a good chance of getting into. And when you do that, things start becoming realistic and you are now being strategic. And that is the point of all this. You are now being practical. So don't hesitate to look up phone numbers or send emails and ask questions. Be stupid asking questions now. Remember that your application needs to be solid, so you don't want to make a mistake in your application. So again, apply the CV method. Go now and just look for as many schools as possible. We will try on our own network to provide some of this information as help for you on LinkedIn, on the page, because that's where we can, communicate with people a lot. So if you have not joined the LinkedIn page, please try, open a LinkedIn account and just search and join. It doesn't cost you anything. So the more skills you apply to, the higher your chances. But the more skills you apply to, the more you spend, because there's a cost attached to many of these applications, and the cost can grow exponentially. So you want to narrow down to the schools where you know that you've met the requirement. And I mean that you've really met the requirements. You will definitely meet the requirements of many programs out there. So you want to narrow down to the schools where you know that you have what they need, the list of what they need. Please do that, okay, so that you don't have to spend so much. Again, pick your battles, please. Be strategic and plan way ahead. Timelines. Many master's programs will admit twice or thrice in a year. PhD programs will admit once in a year. There are programs there are scholarship opportunities, many of which we'll be posting on the LinkedIn page. Again, there are scholarship opportunities that require you to have gotten admitted into a certain school. So if you've ever come across that kind of scholarship and you want to apply to that scholarship, one of the things you want to do is to know when to apply to the program. So look for the program, know when to apply to the program, so that when you get admitted into the program, there's a good chance you will actually get admitted into the program. By the time you are done, you will be ready to apply to the scholarship. But that means you have to plan. That means you have to strategize. That means you have to go back a year before and look at how the timeline was for the scholarship and the program. And you want to register that and know when to do what you need to do. So word of advice, nobody wakes up one morning and decides to go to graduate school. Okay, it takes years. It takes years, maybe months, but years technically of planning and strategy. So the admission decision, again, is not in your hands as much as possible. It is not in your hands. You will get some rejections or maybe a lot of rejections, but you have to keep at it because you know this is what you want to do. Okay, so you want to make sure that you are planning towards what you want to do. For me right now, I am planning what I want to do. My colleague is also he has planned what he wants to do, but he's also planning what he wants to do. Right, so we keep planning every day, and don't be too picky. Right, don't think about it. Is good if you think about the top 5 schools in the world. If you have a good chance of getting into them, please go ahead, right? But also think about the next 45 top rated schools, right? They are also there. They offer really good programs, right? Think about the institutes of research that we mentioned. We'll be posting many of them on our LinkedIn page. Think about the programs and just don't be picky. But make sure you apply the saving method. Start with as many schools as possible and start narrowing down. So in coming weeks and months, we'll be providing some guidelines on the LinkedIn page again, because that's where we can easily communicate with as many people as possible to help you strategize more and apply to graduate programs. So thank you for listening, and I hope we learned a thing or two. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dayo. That was an awesome presentation.